History of Recording Analog 2. Now, sound on sound is something that was a development that occurred with analog tape. Now, Les Paul, a famous guitar player, which many of us know by the guitars made by Gibson, which are named after him, but him and his wife, Mary Ford, recorded themselves with cutting-edge Ampex recorders. Les Paul modified his tape machine to record tracks over the top of one another. He installed an extra playhead on his tape machine. He recorded sound on sound. So let's see what he has to say about it. He said, "I picked up the fourth head from Ampex when we reached Chicago and immediately mounted it. The first thing I did was record me saying, 'Hello, hello, hello, hello.' And then I rewound the tape and explained that I was going to use the fourth head to record me saying, 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing. What we hoped to hear was hello, 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 1, 2, 3, 4 testing played together. If it did that, then we could go on until the neighbors complained. And lo and behold, it worked." So this is kind of what happens. You have one track being played, and then you record another track. Now you have tracks 1 and 2 being played, and you record track 3. Tracks 1, 2, and 3 are being played, and you record track 4. And then tracks 1, 2, 3, and 4 are played. Now with this, the least important piece of sound needs to be recorded first because it becomes degraded every time it goes through a generation like this. So it's quite an art that Les Paul developed in order to do this. Now, things further advanced, and they realized that they could do 3-track machine, and what they did was they split up on the record head and on the play head. They split it up so they're basically 3 record heads on top of each other, and so they split the tape in thirds and are sending a different signal on those 3 sections of the tape. And then they developed the 4-track machine, and as we know, Sgt. Pepper's by the Beatles was done on a 4-track machine, and it combined sound on sound and submixing, which they used. And they would sometimes even record on one 4-track recorder, mix that down to one track of another 4-track recorder, and then continue going from there. Now, let's see what they have to say about it. George Martin said, "What 4-track imposed on us was, firstly, you had to think ahead as to what you were going to do. Secondly, you had to get things right at the time. You couldn't just say, okay, let's leave that because we can fix it in the mix. All those kinds of decisions, that kind of discipline imposes constraints on you, but it also makes you focus much more. And I do believe that if we had had more, the result would have been less." Now, there was more and more advancements. They went to a 16-track 2-inch machine and a 24-track 2-inch machine, which is what's seen here. And the 16-track actually looks the same, but if you looked really close on those heads there in the middle, you'd actually see 24 different sections instead of 16. And there are actually machines that will change between 16-track and 24-track by placing different head stacks there. They tried a 32-track 3-inch machine, but the tape would buckle, and it just really didn't work. Now, the consumer market had advancements in analog. There's a consumer multi-track cassette tape, and this is using similar cassette tapes as we have records on and stuff like that, but there was the same kind of thing where there were multiple strips along there, usually 4 tracks, and allowed recording for consumers, basically in the price point of $500 to $1,500. Now, this technology continued to advance the analog recording on magnetic tape, and there are still plenty of studios around who are based around 24-track machines, and maybe 2 24-track machines. And you've got large consoles, 24 to over 100 channels, and lots of outboard gear connected to these things, and many of the albums that we know and love were recorded in this format from the late 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, and even today there are still albums that are recorded with this process. And that's basically the end of history of recording analog, and now it takes us into digital recording, which we'll talk about next.